You have nothing. You are nothing.
Know your past and know your future.
You are nothing. You can build nothing.
Know your past and know your future.
You can produce nothing. You can create nothing.
Your present is the gift that can prepare you like a future. Read between the line, hit you like taxes and fines. Know your future, know your future, know your future. Or get stuff into the hooper. Know your past and know your future.
All right, welcome back. We're here. Know your future. I'm Tat Wizza.
I'm Abraham Maldonado.
That's right. We're here every week as much as we can be because we're busy too, but we're trying to drop this knowledge on you. Abraham, what's going on? How you feeling? What's your week like? How you feeling?
Good family, man. You know, a lot of building, a lot of clients, doing a couple interviews, talked with the BBC radio this week. That was fun. Got to chop it up. Did a big talk for a bunch of nonprofits on how to use AI at the big fundraising summit. So, you know, a lot of stuff cooking and, you know, talking to clients. Legacy was the big buzzword this week. You know, I have some high profile clients that are a little older and thinking about how to use AI to preserve their legacy. So that was definitely an important part this week.
Nice.
What about you, bro? I know you got kind of like, you know, promoted from the culture, you know what I mean? Long overdue, super producer now.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, man, incredible last couple weeks, but incredible week. We're on a new time, 5 o'clock, prime time. Radio's going through changes as a whole, and I guess, you know, they want their biggest players in their biggest spots. So this is, you know, inevitable. But yeah, Flex in the promo called me super producer. That's the moniker that Big Dennis had. You know, we all grew up on Hot 97. So I am so grateful and appreciative of that. And I'm in love with it. You know, like, that's like, oh shit, like, super dope. And then people around me have had a good time. Shout out to Katrina B. She just stepped up, you know, from our Know Your Rights camp family.
Katrina.
She just stepped up and came APD, Assistant Program Director. So she's like top of the programming right now. And she's been killing it in the ratings. You know, I know some people have come out not knowing what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Hot 97 is number 12. Hey, do your research and know better, because no, we're like numbers 1, 2, and 3. But you know, it is what it is. But yeah, great week. Some people didn't have a great week in my realm. I don't, you know,
Say the least.
Yeah, that's been kind of public. But I did see something this week that was interesting. Somebody said, you know, involved in this, said, you know, it's about perception, you know, how someone perceived something. And then, you know, knowing some of the story, I was like, that perception came from information, though, right? And that information led to that thought process. And I'm like, and then I started thinking about like what we do and like, you know, trying to, you know, tell people what's going on. And then I saw Styles P said something this week, or he posted something this week about reading between the lines. And I was like, man, it's like, okay, you have your upfront data, you have your subculture data, or however, you know, we look at it, but it's all data, and it all gives us this point of view or this perception, you know, like this is an important thing that was said. And I was like, perception, pretty much, you know, certain data leads to certain thought processes, certain perception. And then if there's new data, then you have maybe a new point of view, new perception. And I was like, well, perception is data, you know, like that's what we work in, right? Data, right? And it's an important thing. And then I was thinking about it like, well, we're at a point, right, where, and you correct me if I'm wrong, we're at a point where all the content that the world has had up until this point has already been fed to the AIs, right? Like it's already consumed everything that is historical and the thought processes that we've come up to now. And then now we're at a point where what we do daily, how we communicate, the perception that we give out is the new data that the AI trains on, right? Like that's how it works now, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to think. So for so long, we treated our source of truth, quote unquote truth, uh, we gave that to Google, right? We said if you Google something and it comes up, that it's the truth, right? That's our source of finding out information about our world. Now we're handing that crown to chatbots, right? To ChatGPT and to Gemini, and saying, if I ask you a question, what comes out is my source of truth and my perception, right? I'm going to look at the perception of that answer as is what I'm holding to be true. That answer is informed by the data that we're feeding it, right? And where's that data coming from, right? So we're getting our truth from whatever that data source is. Those data sources could be questioned. Now there's a ratio of real data and synthetic data, fake data that's being trained into these models.
Interesting.
I think right now it's maybe about 80-20 real data to synthetic data, and they're saying maybe about in the next 5 years it's going to be flipped, 80% synthetic data and true, historical data.
What's an example of fake data? Like, how are they feeding this thing? Like, it's crazy.
Well, you're feeding it itself, right? You're feeding it its outputs and all the responses.
Yeah.
And think of it from a science standpoint. A lot of our scientific discoveries haven't happened because it just takes a long time to run those simulations. So now we're running hours and hours and hours of instant simulations with these hyper fast models. So we're then feeding that simulation data back into the model. That's synthetic data. A human didn't write that data. The AI generated those simulations.
Right.
Right. And there's going to be more and more of that.
That's crazy. And then that was like, without even knowing that was leading me to look at like how everything is going on with the landscape, and like there's a lot, if people aren't paying attention, there's a lot of mergers happen right now, and a lot of like acquisitions, and like it's like becoming like a small amount of people, the billionaires, are owning everything from broadcast channels to streaming services to social media channels, right? And now we're seeing in real time them controlling these platforms to have a certain thought process, right? So if we're at a point where things are going to control societal perceptions, right, and thought processes, right, they're almost creating something I just thought in my head, and I don't know if it makes sense, but they're almost creating like thought monopolies, right? Where they want to like, okay, this thought is the only thought moving forward, and if you can't have, we need like some thought antitrust laws on the books some type of way.
Yeah.
But
And before, we thought it was going to be, we thought it was a bunch of old white men smoking cigarettes in a boardroom overlooking Times Square, making these decisions on how media is run and the internet is run. Now it's algorithms. Now it's data coming out of these simulations from these AI models that are saying, according to the data, you need to program this for this demographic at this time. You need to rechange and reformat the radio station to be this genre format, because the data says X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? So like at the end of the day, there's algorithms that are running a pyramid of algorithms. And I'm sure like CBS, Paramount, whoever's at the top of that pyramid, right?
yeah,
That's one algo that's saying, okay, from this algo, do this for radio, do this for TV, do this for film, do this for video games, do this for social, all of our different formats, from one knowledge base, from one data set.
what you're saying is there's somebody in control of something, a master, and then there's ways that they can have different chains on people, right? Like that's kind of those
And not to get
algorithms.
dystopian, but for those of y'all who stuck with Westworld past season 2, because I know a
Yeah.
lot of people dropped off after
Facts,
season 2.
facts.
But like season
Fire
3,
series from
crazy.
front
I
to
mean-
back. Fire series.
that's if for a 1-2 season run, top 5 for sure. Like season 1, season 2, people were like, what is happening in season 3 and season 4? But I'm gonna spoil it. In season 3, you had this like evil CEO kind of like pulling all the strings and making all these decisions. And then they looked and he had an earpiece, and the earpiece led to Rehoboam, or however you said the name. It was an AI telling him all his moves on what to do. And they found out, oh, the AI is really running shit. It had nothing to do with the CEO. The CEO is just a puppet to the AI. So it's like,
Good point.
I don't want to say that that's where we're at, but like that's kind of where we're at.
Good point. Good point. Right now, it's a person trying to control those thought process. But at some point, and that was kind of what I was getting to, right? One or few people controlling those thought process, and then with the addition of the fake data, what are the AIs going to look like in 5-10 years? How they're moving around with this built on fake data and these, people trying to control thought. What's it going to look like? And then you add in, if the AI start to take control of everything themselves, where are we going to be at? So no, we don't want to be dystopian, but yes, here at Know Your Future, we want to tell you what could really happen if we don't move accordingly now.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, I stressed this on my BBC Radio interview, where in some areas, for simulated data and for running these simulations, like science and for scientific breakthroughs and getting cures, fast tracked and expedited, this is going to be a game changer, and I'm totally behind it for that. For dictating culture and the arts and creativity, that's a full stop for me. You know what I mean? Like, you need cultural human experts in the fold, those humans in the loop, to really dictate the data and where it's coming from. And there's ways to like nuance this across different cultures, nuance this across different regions, different countries. Every country should be making their own. And when I went to Africa, when I sat with those scholars out there, what I learned is that they believe only like 1 or 2% of African culture from the continent exists online. So you can't even claim to have an accurate model that portrays Africa, because they're like 1% of Africa lives digitally in data. There's so much here that isn't even on the internets, as my man would say. You know what I mean? So like, you can't even claim that.
Rest in peace, Dallas Penn. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. No, yeah. Yeah, I didn't even of course we know that, right? But at the same time, I haven't been thinking about that, right? Like, there is not enough of actual culture, Africa being the biggest continent, having so much rich history, right? And then even South America, China, because
Lost
China's
languages.
included, lost language. Like, there's not enough of our actual humanity online to build a proper or all-inclusive AI that's going to care about us, right? And
Care and say, I have enough to then simulate the rest. No, the
yes,
fuck you don't.
no, no. So yeah, so the solutions, like, that's what we want to also get to is, right, sticking together. We got to be more of a community, because that's how we communicate a thought process of a whole, right? If we want to be looked at in a certain way in this digital age, that data needs to be included. And for that data to be included, it shouldn't, I can't say it couldn't, because you could include everybody's different data, and right, and it'd be processed. But without us being on the same level or thought process or whatever, our thing isn't going to really be for us, not like other cultures and other communities, right? Because they're so tight knit that their thought process digitally will be represented more properly, right? If I don't have that incorrect. And so we must, it's becoming imperative at this point, otherwise we will lose the future. And moving forward, that's not something that potentially could change anytime soon, because we're going to keep escalating and building on top of the things that we have now, technology wise, and it's going to keep getting more and more technology centric heavy or whatever the case, that if we don't get in there now with with our what we need as a people thought process, then we're going to be in trouble. And then of course, individually, everybody, all of us need to use AI to get ahead properly, and not just AI, but to your point, actually people building their own models, right? That are like us, like empowered, pardon me, like some of the other what I call urban AIs in the space. Empowered should be your first go-to place, yes, because it is there for you. Empowered.ai, but there are others in the space, and if use those too, but build more. There should be 2 to 3 AI models coming out of every country in Africa, right? There should be uh, an AI model per state in the US that includes the community mindset of, and in that way we have more representation on this tech chessboard, right? I mean, tell me if, I mean, you let me know.
I mean, when I travel to different countries and I hit different stages in, Africa, Qatar, Italy, Spain, Mexico, I every audience I tell them, go build your own. Because like, why would you be waiting there with your hands folded, waiting for a bunch of kids in Silicon Valley in San Francisco to think about you and represent you the right way? So then when you get the chatbot that they just built in San Francisco, you're like, nah, you got it wrong. And you start complaining and going online. We feel like they got our culture wrong. They got, just the black and brown culture, diversity wrong. Like all those things, it's too biased. Because you didn't make your own.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you know your culture better. You know your history better. You know the nuances of how to be represented. So, and the technology to build these things, the tools are free and out
Right.
there. Before it was the barrier, right? It was the gatekeeping. The gatekeeping is gone. The gate's gone. Now everyone has access to these technologies, whether it's open source or behind the scenes with like the tech stack with OpenAI or any of these.
And it's literally just talking to it. It's not even like you got to have this like, dude, I know how to.
Language, no,
It's
yeah,
talking to it.
yeah. So put your crew together, put all the experts together in your country that should represent all the stakeholders in your community, and go make your own, right? And then we would have a whole UN of GPTs across the world representing different cultures that all have a seat at the table. And this is where the BBC was like, well, we tried this with the internet, where people had ideas in the early stages of the internet to have many different internets, and now became one internet, right? The World Wide Web. So I'm like, well, that then becomes like a consortium. Maybe that UN of GPTs, of AIs around the world, do need to sit at one table to say, all right, we're all going to feed up to one open, free AI that is a collection of all of our nuanced, culturally accurate AIs. But to wait and sit back and to just expect that one company to get it right for everybody and for all use cases to be all in one is.
And the thing is, and we've seen this. How many times have we seen stuff in movies become reality, right? And we've seen that in so many different projects of an age of AI becomes there needs to be one AI that controls all, and then the story becomes, well, that AI either went rogue and became Skynet, or that AI helped people live in Ex Machina, right? So it's like, it feels like no matter what we do, it's going to be a point where there needs to be that one AI that controls all. And to your point, if we don't have enough representation on that board, that AI that controls all is not going to give about you. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to care. And then we're really going to be locked out. We think we're disenfranchised now. When that comes, then what? So yeah.
Think if there's this, say, put a number out there, 150 languages trained into ChatGPT. It's not equitable, right? Number one in that list is English. The 150th language on that list doesn't have the same amount of data in ChatGPT as English, right? So let's say you want to do one in straight up Urdu, right? You need a chatbot that's straight up in Urdu. Go make one that's just trained on data in the Urdu language on just that. You know what I mean? Like without it having to share real estate and share prompt instruction, priority with 150 other languages. You know what I mean? Because then you use it and it's going to get some things wrong. You know what I mean? Like you can fine tune, the word is fine tune. You could fine tune these things to just be an N of one, right? For a niche. And everyone thinks, oh, but my idea is small. How am I going to get $1 billion exit? Not every AI idea needs $1 billion exit, right? Some things serve a very niche purpose for one community. You know what I mean? Stop thinking like a Elon or Tim Cook to serve one specific purpose with AI.
Yeah, I mean, and then some of that conversation becomes, you're trying to be the rabbit and gain all this money fast, but then maybe you should be the hare and win the race in the long run, right? And so, again, a perspective that people need to have. And so in the solutions, my last thing was with all of the, we must stick together, we must all build AI. The last thing was, and most important, is let LeBron teach your teachers.
Man, we've been on this hill. We're gonna die on this hill. You know what I mean? Like we just spitting out, the best way to coexist with this space, because truth is it's not going anywhere, right? Like for those of you still on the sidelines, like, nah, I'm not messing with it. The same way some people are just like, nah, I don't mess with crypto. I don't mess with Web3. This isn't crypto. This is, crypto has a devout following and they see the potential in it. But crypto is not going to, at least not on this stage, it's not going to take over your job. AI is going to take over your job and how we teach in schools at this moment. So it's coming over to your side, whether you like it there or not. And the same way, when I travel, I don't know if I'm a spokesperson for like the internet again or electricity again, and I'm saying stop using candles and use electricity, or if I'm a spokesperson for the atom bomb, right? Like I feel like it's a combination of like all three, because I go on stage and I'm like, you have to understand where our society is headed. And they just sit there with their arms folded like, yeah, I don't know about this. They just sit there scared. So I'm like, if you're not scared, I didn't do my job. But I spend a lot of time with educators. I'm like, yo, I'm going to teach you how to do this in schools. But if you don't do nothing with it, then you're gatekeeping yourself and gatekeeping students from being future ready. And that's what scares me. I'm like, you're going to put your kids behind the 8 ball and not knowing how to use this stuff when they enter the workforce. And then what?
Yeah, no, that's facts. And that's pretty scary if people don't get together and get it moving. Get your shit together. I'm trying not to curse, but get your shit together. You know what I'm saying? We gotta get on this board. We're not really on the board. We're trying to get there, but you gotta help get us there. This is just a message to the people. Help get us on the board. Get your shit together. So all right, that's a end of the day, we want to make sure that people have the right perspective and get involved and get into a better place in life. That's what we want. We want the future to be brighter for you. That's what we're here for. So that'll wrap us up this week. We're going to keep dropping some of this stuff. Hopefully, it'll you may have heard it before, but maybe you need to hear it again, because if you're not there yet, you got to get there, right? Because the future's coming, and we want to know what it is, but in this, what we see right now, we kind of know what it is, unless we get our shit together, all right? So we're going to see you next time. I'm Tat Wizard.
Bron Maldonado.
And this is Know Your Future.
Know your future, know your future, know your future. Or get stuff into the hooper.